We have an article here written by a legend, Linus Torvald. I actually don't know if I pronounced the last name right, but as it's written here, he's a creator of Linux and also the creator of Git. If I remember correctly, he created Git in like a weekend or something. So yeah, but he's obviously one of the legends of the programmer, one of the geniuses, and making it open source, both Git and Linux. He really means a lot to the community of programming, the culture. So here's an article written by Linus himself, The Beauty of Programming. I'm really interested in reading this because I think I just learn a lot from people that are into things, that are obsessed by things, that love doing what they do. So I feel like I will learn and feel a lot from this. The Beauty of Programming by Linus Torvald. It's an article written on Bryn Mawr College. I don't know how to really explain my fascination with programming, but I'll try. Somebody who does it, it's the most interesting thing in the world. It's a game much more involved than chess, a game where you can make up your own rules and where the end result is whatever you can make of it. And yet, to the outside, it looks like the most boring thing on earth. Part of the initial excitement in programming is easy to explain. Just the fact that when you tell the computer to do something, it will do. Unerringly, forever, without a complaint. And that's interesting in itself. I have to say, it's so true that to the outside world, it probably looks like one of the most boring things on the earth. You're just writing lines of texts. But yeah, to the person who's doing it, you're going through so much, You're going through logic, you're going through beauty, art. Yeah, I think it's just a beautiful game. But blind obedience on its own, while initially fascinating, obviously does not make for a very likable companion. What makes programming so engaging is that while you can make the computer do what you want, you have to figure out how. I'm personally convinced that computer science has a lot in common with physics. Both are about how the world works at a rather fundamental level. The difference, of course, is that while in physics you are supposed to figure out how the world is made up, in computer science you create the world. Within the confines of the computer, you are the creator. You get to ultimately control everything that happens. If you're good enough, you can be God on a small scale. And I've probably offended roughly half the population on Earth by saying so. But it's true. You get to create your own world, and the only thing that limits what you can do are the capabilities of the machine, and more often these days, your own abilities. Think of a treehouse. You can build a treehouse that is functional and has a trapdoor and is stable. But everybody knows the difference between a treehouse that is simply solidly built and one that is beautiful, that takes creative advantage of the tree. It's a matter of combining art and engineering. Guys, I said it earlier too. It's about engineering because you're creating something. You're making logic to make something work the way that you want it to be. But it's also art because when you design, for example, web dev is like a good example. You can design something that's beautiful, that's easy to use, that's pleasing to look at. And at the same, even stepping a little bit away from that, even coding itself. There are so many ways to code one functionality. Why choose one thing over the other? There can be many reasons, artistic reasons, logical reasons, and when it comes down to it, it's a big part of it is an art. This is one of the reasons programming can be so captivating and rewarding. The functionality often is second to being interesting, being pretty, or being shocking. It is an exercise in creativity. The thing that drew me into programming in the first place was the process of just figuring out how the computer worked. One of the biggest joys was learning that computers are like mathematics. You get to make up your own world with its own rules. In physics, you're constrained by existing rules, but in math, as in programming, anything goes as long as it's self-consistent. Mathematics doesn't have to be constrained by any external logic, but it must be logical in and of itself. And as any mathematician knows, you literally can have a set of mathematical equations in which 3 plus 3 equals 2. You can do anything you want to do. In fact, just as you add complexity, you have to be careful not to create something that is inconsistent within the world you've created. For that world to be beautiful, it can contain any flaws. That's how programming works. One of the reasons people have become so enamored with computers is that they enable you to experience new worlds you can create and to learn what's possible. In mathematics, you can engage in mental gymnastics about what might be. For example, when most people think of geometry, they think of Euclidean geometry, but the computer has helped people visualize different geometries, ones that are not at all Euclidean. With computers, for those of you that don't know, Euclidean geometry is basically what we think of geometry. So you might think triangles, squares, anything that is in that family. With computers, you can take these made up worlds and actually see what they look like. Remember the Mandelbrot set 3/4, the fractal images based on Benoit Mandelbrot's equations? These were visual representations of a purely mathematical world that could never have been visualized before computers. Mandelbrot just made up these arbitrary rules about this world that doesn't exist and that has no relevance to reality. But it turned out they created fascinating patterns. With computers and programming, you can build new worlds, and sometimes patterns are truly beautiful. Most of the time, you are not doing that. You are simply writing a program to do a certain task. In that case, you are not creating a new world, but you are solving a problem within the world of the computer. The problem gets solved by thinking about it, and only a certain kind of person is able to sit and stare at a screen just think things through. Only a dweeby, geeky person like me. And also me, I like doing that. The operating system is the basis for everything else that will happen in the machine, and creating one is the ultimate challenge. When you create an operating system, you're creating the world in which all programs running the computer live basically. You are making up the rules of what's acceptable and can be done and what can't be done. Every program does that, but the operating system is the most basic. It's like creating the constitution of the land that you're creating, and all other programs running on the computer are just common laws. Sometimes the laws don't make sense, but sense is what you strive for. You want to be able to look at this solution and realize that you came to the right answer in the right way. Remember the person in school who always got the right answer? That person did it much more quickly than everybody else and did it because he or she didn't try to. That person didn't learn how the problem was supposed to be done, but instead just thought about the problem the right way. And once you heard the answer, it made perfect sense. The same is true in computers. You can do something the brute force way, the stupid grind the problem down until it's not a problem anymore way, or you can find the right approach and suddenly the problem just goes away. You look at the problem another way and you have this epiphany. It was only a problem because you were looking at it the wrong way. To me, when I solve a lot of problems, when I code, I definitely feel like I do this grinding way. And I feel like it's a good, at least I'm happy that I know I do this. I feel like that's a good first step for going to whatever the next step is. And eventually I want to be able to look at a problem in a different ways to come up with a better solution. Or just realizing that it's only a problem because I'm looking at it the wrong way. Probably the greatest example of this is not from computing, but from mathematics. The story goes that the great German mathematician Carl Friedrich Gauss was in school and his teacher was bored. So to keep the students preoccupied, he instructed them to add up all the numbers between 1 and 100. Oh, this is one of my favorite stories. The teacher expected the young people to take all day doing that. But the budding mathematician came back 5 minutes later with the correct answer, 5050. The solution is not to actually add up all the numbers because they would be frustrating and stupid. What he discovered was that by adding 1 and 100 you get 101. Then by adding 2 and 99 you get 101. Then 3 and 98. So 50 and 51 is 101. In a matter of seconds, he noticed that it's 50 pairs of 101. So the answer is 50,050. I love this story because this shows how like something genius is simple. I mean, something genius can be simple. And I feel like quite often it is. I still remember this quote that I really like about football. Someone said, playing football is simple, but playing simple is difficult. And I really think that. I think the solution is really simple, but thinking of this simple solution is difficult. And I feel like that goes with so many things. And that's why I really like this story. Maybe the story is apocryphal, but the point is clear. The great mathematician doesn't solve a problem the long and boring way because he sees what the real pattern is behind the question and applies the pattern to find the answer in a much better way. The same is definitely true in computer science too. Sure, you can just write a program that calculates the sum. On today's computers, there would be a snap, but a great programmer would know what the answer is simply by being clever. He would know to write a beautiful program that attacks a problem in a new way that in the end is the right way. It's still hard to explain what can be so fascinating about beating your head against the wall for 3 days, not knowing how to solve something the better way, the beautiful way. But once you find that way, it's the greatest feeling in the world. Damn. That's a really cool article. Yeah. Just someone who loves their craft, writing about their love of the craft and not being able to explain why they love it. And I think that's something very beautiful about that, something very human about that. I think we're all going to die and we don't know why we live when we're all going to die. I think it just gets down to really philosophical. Like there are people that loves playing guitar, loves programming, that loves playing painting paint. Like why? Why do you love cooking? Like why do you love playing guitar, singing? Like it's for most people it's not gonna earn you money, so what's the point? Why you like I think there's so much things that we can say about these things. Like programming happens to be one of those things that can translate to jobs and earning money, but we can go further. Why do you enjoy earning money? Why do you enjoy going travel, having good food? I think if you keep coming down to it, it's just that we just love what we do and we can't explain it. And I think things like this is just something that we can't explain. And we just love, some people love playing football. Why? Because I love playing football. And I think something about that is very comforting because it's just like very innocent, childlike fascination, love and interest. And yeah, I just love seeing that in people. I find it comforting. I find it inspiring. Somehow I feel closer to the humanity as a collective and I feel safer and so on. Yeah, I don't know. It's, yeah, all that to say, I just love seeing geeks, and I'm saying that in a positive way. And I don't mean just computer geeks, but geeks in anything, sports, art, stamp collection, cards. Yeah, I just love seeing geeks talking about the geeky thing they love. So yeah, I would love to hear about your geeky thing that you love if you have one. But otherwise, hope you enjoyed this article as much as I did. Yeah, really cool article to read from one of the legends in the programming. But thank you guys for watching and like and subscribe. Bye.